Today we are going to save. I can't go on with this. Today we are going to spend a lot of money. We are not going to save.
No, we have to save. This is about saving. We have to save something because otherwise how can I sell this to the shareholders? No, you have to save something. Think about it.
Well, we will have to search. Although, of course, if we look at it from the perspective that we are going to compare the best options in electric outboards, it is obvious that choosing the right one is a way to save money. And we will see how to make an outboard bracket ourselves, of course, too, which is also a way to save some money. And of course, the biggest saving can be from the perspective of the hydrogenerator. We are going to save more than 4,000 on a hydrogenerator because the outboard that I like the most is also a hydrogenerator. And of course, there's already the whole nature and pollution thing that we are going to save nature, that we are talking about clean energy.
Let's see, I don't give a shit about nature. 4,000 bucks, that's the good one. That's the good one. Tell me your phrase, the 4,000 bucks to save.
Today we are going to save $4,000, more or less. Greetings sailors and welcome to a new episode of the Low Cost Sailor. In today's episode we will compare some of the electric outboard alternatives in the market. We are going to test their performance and squeeze them far beyond the manufacturer's claims to give them new uses that will turn these electrical outboards into very versatile multi-purpose tools for our boats and dinghies. We're going to see the performance of different models, test them in common situations, and also try some new uses, including power generation, while we are sailing. Don't miss it, because I am sure that we're going to surprise you. The boat is my hideaway, my way of escaping from the hustle and bustle of everyday life and finding a haven of peace in the middle of the sea. I really love the silence when sailing, but also the days that dawn with the sea completely calm and not a drop of wind. Disembark on the beach, move cutting the water flat and shiny as a mirror. The bad thing is that the engine is needed there, and whether you like it or not, that takes away a little of the peace and quiet with its noises, smells and smoke. Hence I have always dreamed of having a sailboat with an electric motor. That is my path, and that is what I aspire to at some point, is the path of sustainability. An electric motor without the noise and odors of fuels. Being able to make the most of all the capacity I already have to generate my own energy, not only for the comforts on board but also to use it to propel my boat, has become one of my main goals. Although at the moment this goal is too big, or rather let's say too expensive, but I'm taking my steps and I'm positive seeing how the availability of electric outboard motors on the market has evolved. They are now of contained sizes, with integrated batteries and with great flexibility in use. And with the help of SVB, that is always there for us when we need to test something new or build or repair anything on our boats. In the end, its catalogue of more than 30,000 nautical products from 350 different brands and its ability to ship quickly to any port in the world always makes you have everything you need for our inventions and repairs. Well, with all that, I decided to take the first step on the road to electrification with an electric outboard that is able to replace the gasoline in my auxiliary as well as push the 4.5 tons of my boat to be able to move in silence.
As a maritime ninja?
Silence, I said. Electric outboards have been on the market for quite some time, and the number of options available and their features have been evolving over the past few years. From the small power blenders that do not have an integrated battery but are very economical, I bought one of those many years ago and it is still working. It has been part of many inventions, it has gotten me out of some trouble, and we will also use it in this small comparison. To the most advanced ones with lithium batteries already offer power ratings worthy of replacing small gasoline outboards. There are many options, but there are two brands that stand out for their trajectory and price, Torqeedo and Epropulsion, although more options from other traditional brands are beginning to incorporate electric motorization. But everyone has to stick to their own budget and their needs. And going through SVB's guide to electric outboards, it was clear to me that for my main need, which was to replace my dinghy's 2-horsepower outboard with a more reliable, quiet and comfortable to use electric outboard, a 1 kWh battery electric outboard would be more than sufficient. Basically, I had to decide between the Epropulsion Spirit and the Torqeedo Travel. Torqeedo has a wider range and it has been longer on the market with options with 900, 1000, 1000 watts in the price of $2,000 or so. And the Epropulsion focuses on 1000 watts in its range by adding some more innovative functionalities than the Torqeedo. Although Torqeedo has some novelty in 1600 watts, but I was already a little out of the price. Well, I was all out of the price, but now throwing the house out the window, what I'm going to do? At the end, the question really was whether there are significant differences in performance between the two brands, how much the engine power influences the speed, and above all, what I could expect from the performance of these engines. Well, beyond the technical characteristics, I wanted to test it myself by doing a small performance test with my small Quicksilver dinghy, which has an inflatable floor and measures 2.4 meters in length. For the test, I was going to compare the performance of 3 different motors: my old 40-pound single outboard, the Torqeedo Travel 1003 with 1 kW, and the Epropulsion Spirit EVO with 1 kW, all with their integrated batteries. Well, all of them, maybe not all of them. I built a 12V lithium battery for my old 40-pound outboard, for it to be able to compete on equal terms. I built it with a 36V one that I had lying around, adding a PWM voltage regulator that even allowed me to overfeed it if necessary. I did not overdo it just in case, but I could.
That battery that I had around, no? That's what happens to you, no? That you say, oh well, I have one here.
Well, actually I bought it for a little car. Some kind of electric tricycle that my father made, and he occasionally tells me that he has killed the battery and asked me to buy him another one. And as it takes a long time for them to arrive with AliExpress, I buy them months in advance. And then I had that one lying around. It is very easy to compare the characteristics of the different engines thanks to the product comparator on the SVB website. Seeing on the website all their characteristics can quickly help us to make a decision. Well, and remember that when you buy anything at the SVB website, if you use the code TheLowCostSailor, they will send you a free SVB utility knife. The most significant data are the power of the motors, the weight, the maximum thrust, which is nothing more than the force into which the power is transformed, and the battery size. The Torqeedo 1003, which we will test, has already been replaced in the catalogs by the model number 1103, which has 100W more power, but the thrust remains basically the same as the Epropulsion. The most significant difference is that the Torqeedo is 3 kilo lighter and the price is $200 less than the Epropulsion. But in exchange, the Epropulsion has a 25% more battery and some functionalities that we will see below. Difference in weight did not seem very significant to me since, compared to gasoline outboards, these electric outboards all have the advantage that they can be stored, transported, assembled and disassembled by parts, which makes them less heavy overall. Both indicate that they are equivalent to a 3 horsepower engine, and that is what I wanted to test. As a reference, I'm going to use my 2 horsepower outboard and see how they perform in the same boat. In the test with the 2 horsepower gasoline outboard, we reached a speed of 4.2 to 4.3 knots in flat water. We repeated that same test with the 40-pound electric outboard and our homemade battery that is supposed to equal 0.7 horsepower. With that, we managed to reach 2 knots with peak speeds of 2.4 knots approximately in conditions of flat water with no current and no wind. The same test with the 1 kilowatt Torqeedo in flat water conditions and no wind led us to put it at a speed of 4.3 knots. And repeating it with the Epropulsion outboard, the result was basically the same. 1 kilowatt is 1 kilowatt and generates the same power. So don't expect to use them to build a narco ship or something like that either. Well, although if we put the 3 engines together in the same boat, I can already see myself crossing the strait like lightning there or chasing the bad guys.
With the electric narco ship?
With my 3-engine electric motor. I'll see if I can talk to the people in customs. So in this aspect, there are several conclusions. Firstly, that the performance of a kilowatt is basically identical regardless of whether it is Epropulsion or Torqeedo. Both designs are very, very similar. Some people would even say that one is a copy of the other. Secondly, the performance of both is identical to that of a 2 horsepower gasoline rather than a 3 horsepower. Although in the latter, it must be taken into account that the speed is not directly proportional to the power, which means that as the speed increases, a significantly greater increase in power is necessary to achieve even a small increase in speed. So in reality, between 2's horsepower and 3's horsepower engines, you will hardly notice any difference. Unless it is just the difference, so that you get to plan with one and not the other. But well, the only real difference between the two is undoubtedly the battery. In the end, this is all about mathematics. 25% more capacity means 25% more autonomy. And autonomy is one of the things that these engines lack the most. And personally, I think it's what you have to invest in. I don't think it's a secret for you at this point which one I chose, since you have seen during this video that one is shiny new and the other ones are a little more worn out. But I had doubts because with SVB I could choose any of them. Even in my attempts to talk to both Epropulsion and Torqeedo, Torqeedo's support seems to be much more efficient and collaborative. But I still went with the Epropulsion one, and what convinced me was not only the battery but a couple of very innovative features that the EVO version has that I wanted to try. So I asked SVB for my Epropulsion Spirit EVO, and with SVB's ability to ship to any port in the world quickly, in just 4 days I had my outboard delivered at my home. One thing that surprised me a lot, positively, was the shipping costs. Basically, SVB will send you almost anything in their catalog for €8. A motor this big, €8 for shipping costs. A remote control also €8. There's such excitement in opening these toys. Well packaged, with a very robust aspect, very heavy. I chose the kit with the motor, the battery and the tiller control that comes with a 220V charger to charge the battery. Easy to assemble and very easy to manage as it is divided into 3 parts with its magnetic man overboard security system. The truth is that I loved it, and it is something that I see super comfortable and practical to go with the auxiliary in almost absolute silence. I imagine that these engines are those used today by the Navy SEALs in their covert missions, well, maybe a little more powerful. Ideal for embarking and disembarking, allowing you to make a short excursion thanks to having information at all times on the remaining range according to the speed at which you are going, which is basically an hour and a quarter going full throttle and can last up to 10 hours at a slow cruising speed of 2.5 knots. Best things, reliability, comfort and silence, which is very rare in my life. Because I enjoyed the silence so much, I wanted to replicate it on my boat. I dreamed of sailing in silence on these summer days at dawn when there isn't a drop of wind and the water looks like a mirror reflected in the sky. In the characteristics it says that it is for sailboats up to 1500 kilos, but it also says that it is equivalent to a 3 horsepower engine, and it seemed to me that it is more like a 2 horsepower engine. I prefer to draw my own conclusions because if you remember our episode number 21, 2 horsepower can give you a lot and can even get you out of trouble. 2 horsepower was what once brought us 10 miles back to port after our engine broke down, of course at a top speed of about 3 knots. So I had my hopes up that I could move the boat with the new outboard electric motor.
After fishing tuna that one time.
Yes, fishing double as in the previous year. The first tests I did were very simple, just using the emergency bracket to attach to the ladder that I already had, and by turning the outboard tiller control around so that I could operate it from the stern balcony. This proved to me that I could at least push the 4.5 tons of my boat at 2.7 knots with the new electric motor. Which is not much, but depends on the hurry or the plan you have, it is 2.7 knots without wind and in silence. Enough to go fishing for squid or to go to the beach to have breakfast at dawn. It seemed to me more than sufficient, and with an hour and a quarter of autonomy at that speed, it allows me to do a few things. Once I checked that the engine could move the boat and that it could be an alternative for an emergency, or even that I could find more uses for it, I went all out and added a couple of accessories to my engine. Those accessories were not necessary, you do not need to buy them, but they make my life more comfortable. First of all, I bought the wireless controller to operate it and view the data from the logbook. Well, whoever says from the cockpit also means from the bow or even from inside the boat. If we combine the wireless controller with our famous pilot's remote control that we made in one of our previous episodes, and we sell in our online store, if you haven't visited it, I don't know what you are doing. Well, with that we can manage the boat completely from anywhere you want. Starting is very simple, although the first time you will have to pair it with the outboard. To do this, with the motor unplugged, turn on the remote control, press the OK button for 5 seconds and it goes into pairing mode. Plug in the motor and the motor recognizes it. And it is already paired, showing all the information and being able to control it remotely. Magic! The controller has its own battery and is charged by solar energy or by connecting it with the cable to the motor. I didn't like this last detail very much. The connector of the remote control doesn't have any cap. I don't think it's adequate. And the cable is not included, although it is not necessary with solar charging. And I wanted to improve the autonomy a little, so I also got the solar charger for the motor. It is not that it can charge at the same rate as it discharges, that would be ideal, but at least it allows you to increase a little the autonomy if you are charging while you use it. Or even infinite autonomy at very low speed since it charges 180 W. At 180 W you can expect that you will still get a knot. But now I can even use my EcoFlow flexible panels on the Zodiac or recharge with my boat service batteries. I just had to improve my emergency support and make it more permanent. The truth is that I was looking at many of the options SVB has for lifting outboard mounts, and I even found one for the stern that looked very good and was inexpensive. But it didn't quite fit with what I had in mind, and I decided to build one myself. My idea was to make a bracket that would allow me to fix the outboard on the stern, to place it well centered with good resistance, and that would allow me to use it safely both in forward and reverse. That will be explained in a moment. So I followed the idea of my original design for the swim ladder, to which I would add a pair of stainless steel bars tightly fixed to the stern, and that would become the base to fix this bracket and in the future other accessories. Then I cutted some wooden boards of the right size in case anyone is interested. I will leave the diagram in the post on the website. Adjust the angles a little and make a bracket to be fixed to the fixing bars with pins. The main thing is that it should be very easy to put on and take off. And that's it. In less than a minute, I can attach the outboard bracket and use it with the remote control. But I'm telling you that those two bars open the door to future accessories. I don't know if you can think of things I can add there on the stern. I had told you that it was important that the new bracket worked well in both forward and reverse. This was important to be able to use it for maneuvers or to be able to use it to stay static at some point. But even more so for a very important functionality that the Epropulsion EVO has, and that was one of the reasons that led me to choose it. The ability to be used as a hydrogenerator. At first only to charge its own battery. But you know how I like to tinker, and nobody would be surprised if I start working in how to turn it into one of those hydrogenerators that sell for a lot of money. The original idea is that if you leave it in the water and the battery is below 90%, with the speed and the drag, the propeller starts to spin and it uses this spin to charge its own battery. At 4 knots you can expect around 50 watts. I have seen, and you will see it here in the video, 150 watts more or less at almost 6 knots, but it reaches 330 W at 10 knots. Which for a boat like mine is a speed that is almost unattainable. But I see it as a good option for small racing boats that you can have in a single device, a motor for maneuvering in port, and at the same time the ability to recharge the batteries under sail. I'm already thinking and experimenting with this to see if I can get it to charge my boat's service batteries directly. As with the wireless controller, I am convinced that I will be able to supplant the protocol to one day be able to operate it directly from the Raspberry, and create a dynamic positioning system or a man overboard system that can come to pick me up automatically, or some other similar idea that might pop into my mind. Sailboats and electric motors go very well together. I think they are a great combination. That it would be better to have a more powerful internal electric one? Yes, but at the moment I can't afford it. And I am very fond of Swiss Army knives for things that are good for many things. A small electric outboard that I can use both in the Zodiac, but also it can be used in the boat when you have an emergency. That I can also use it as a hydrogenerator to recharge, at least it for the time being. And that gives me some autonomy to navigate in silence. What do you want me to tell you, apart from the fact that I consider electric motors to be infinitely more reliable and with less maintenance than gasoline engines? Are they expensive? Yes, all outboards are.
But a new one, a new combustion outboard, how much would that be?
About half, more or less. Differences between Torqeedo and Epropulsion, for me the main thing is regeneration. The Torqeedo is lighter and has many more options. I tell you that the attention is better, it seems to me that it has better support. The thing is that right now Epropulsion still seems to me to be at the top of the list of functionalities. The next step. There are some pod modules that I would love to try. They are like a little motor that is embedded into the hull of the boat, as if you had a sail drive but electric. I would put mine too on the sides with regeneration. I remove the motor, I fill it with batteries, and boah, I would make it in electric. That's my dream. Epropulsion, Torqeedo, any electric motor manufacturer. Let's talk! Jokes aside, thank you very much for your attention, navigators. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel, you have the little bell to receive notifications. You have all the information, the diagram of the support I made, all the information and links in the description of the video, and also in our web, www.thelowcostsailor.com. As you know, you can also find our store there. So if you need to buy something on AliExpress or Amazon, or if you are looking for a remote control for your boat, an SD card, or anything else we can provide, just head over there and you will be helping the channel at the same time.
See you in a couple of weeks for a new episode of The Low Cost Sailor.